Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to start by acknowledging SoonerCon. Set sail once again for the high seas of Oklahoma's longest-running pop culture convention. A fun weekend awaits you full of cosplay, shopping, celebrity autographs, panels, and the after-hours events. Set up in the Embassy Suites in Norman, Oklahoma, you'll find a fantastic geeky weekend, June 19th through 21st, 2026. Visit SoonerCon.com for details. Convention season is upon us, and that's going to mean you're all going out to conventions all across the world. You're going to bump into some fresh new comic artists who are putting out independent works, and I would love to hear what's going on out there. You're going to find people who are releasing their first comic. You're going to find people who have been releasing comics for decades. Today's guest is somebody who's right in the middle. This isn't his first rodeo, but he is going to be working on something really cool, really fresh, and he's talking about the differences between making a comic yourself and working with somebody like DC or Marvel. I would like to give this guy all the credit in the world, and let's get started with Earl right now. On mic this evening, we have Earl Baylon. How you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. I'm really interested in talking about your upcoming comic project here. I've seen a lot of really cool comic Kickstarters, but yours has a neat flavor to it here. We're talking about the comic series Lineage.
Yes.
The first issue is out already, but you're actually doing all the remaining issues as one bundle, if I understand correctly. Okay, that's cool. That's really cool.
So we put out the first issue last. I want to say it was October. It was a very busy time. There were so many things happening, but last fall, and that was a Kickstarter itself. Now we have a second Kickstarter, and we are using it to fund issues two through 4. So our plan is to have issue 2 ready for Wondercon, issue 3 ready for San Diego Comic-Con, and then issue 4 ready for New York. So it's a little ambitious.
It is.
I think we can do it.
But, if you've got the story and the art kind of in a row there, it's with an eye shot. You can pull this off.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And I want to talk about the story for sure, but
Absolutely.
I'm really compelled just to ask about your choice in using, because I've noticed you said you're going to compile all 4 issues into a trade paperback.
Yes.
What's the argument you've had with yourself as to whether you should do just a trade paperback, do the floppies, or do both?
I think, it wasn't too much of a talk with like the entire creative team. So the entire creative team behind this particular book, it is Doug Marcaita's like IP and story, of course. And then me and Justin Keyson are writers. We have 2 artists in the Philippines, Raymond and Felix, and then Patricio, who runs Kid Heroes, which is the imprint of the company that we're publishing under. He is our creative director. So there wasn't too much of a back and forth, but I think in the end it was that some people still love the floppies. And some because they want to have them in the long boxes, and then some people just collect TPBs, and we wanted to cater to both people. So,
I think that's really cool because it shows you understand your audience, you understand where they're coming from, and not everybody's looking at it the same way. And that's something I've seen a lot of artists really want to push one over the other, and for money reasons, that makes sense sometimes.
You're right.
But that's cool. And the story itself, I got to get to that because I just want business first. But
absolutely,
it's really, really cool. It's got a flair. They said it's based on a lot of Filipino culture.
Yes.
And starting off with the creation of this, I want to say dagger.
It's I guess you could call it a dagger. It's kind of
Well, it's the technical name.
Knife or
Which leads them into basically a cult.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of the story of 2 brothers who get passed down this ancestral blade. The specific name of the type of blade is karambit. which is from Southeast Asia. Primarily occurs in Filipino and Indonesian cultures. Um, and well, the blade is, like I said, something that was passed down to them, and it has a connection to a cult that they were in as children, and then escaped from to the U.S. And through the power of this blade, they start to see things pop up around them in their new adopted homeland, which is Los Angeles, California. They see all these clues and eventually run into something that is unmistakably part of a cult that leads them back to the Philippines. So,
Without, I'm not in the business of doing spoilers, so I'm not going to ask you to
absolutely.
give away anything. However, are they seeing, is this tied back to their cult, or is it just a sad coincidence?
It's definitely tied back to the cult. It is
Okay.
the feeling is that um, they the cult is not exactly coming for them, but it's stretching its fingers into where they live now.
Yeah. I mean, we've all had that moment. It doesn't necessarily involve a cult and that sort of
Right.
thing. But we've all had that moment where it's like, man, that thing that I thought I got away from as a child is coming back to haunt me.
That's exactly what the feeling is.
Mhm.
So it's both a story of like kind of it mirrors the kind of childhood trauma that they had from the incident that brought them to the U.S. from the Philippines. So
Yeah. I like the word trauma there because that's a very specific word that I'm spending a lot of time doing some research on
mm,
now.
absolutely
So if you're working that in, I think maybe that could be part of the conversation.
right. Yeah, it totally can be.
Because and I've talked to a lot of people, especially dealing with mental health, dealing with trauma,
Hmm.
dealing with just a past that they're not very happy about. And
Right.
they've used comics and sci-fi and fantasy as ways of giving them allegories to what they're dealing with. And that's an
Yeah,
easier way to process things sometimes.
I think that's huge. I think it's great that it's becoming not only more accepted, but like it's becoming identified. Because some people go through their entire lives without identifying their trauma, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Without identifying um, the experiences and the events that create their thought process. So it's really cool that people are more open to that now, and I even if we take a look at our old sci-fi classics, we look at the Star Treks, the Star Wars, we see it all there. We can look at it retroactively and be like, oh, this is what he was dealing with there. It was never explicitly said, but of course, Luke Skywalker is going to have like some trauma behind his father that he never met, and then all of a sudden he finds out is like the evil Lord Vader. The galactic level evil. So yeah.
Yeah. And we tell these stories about the chosen one, whether that
Hmm.
be Luke Skywalker or Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Right.
or any number of other heroes who just get thrust into it. And many of those stories didn't immediately address the fact that this person didn't want to be there.
Right.
Or that's the part that as kids we gloss over. A lot of times
Hmm.
the story addresses it, but that's the boring part that we refilled our popcorn during that.
Right.
And then we're like,
Absolutely.
oh no, this was important.
Yeah. This is a bad thing. I
Yeah.
think it's really cool that we're seeing that portrayed now in even big blockbuster films. We're talking about things like the new Dune movies. Like we're really seeing it from the aspect of like, oh no, this is not a hero story. This is him dealing with the pressures from so many different avenues. The pressures of him being from aristocracy, but also from him being the genetic experiment of this eons long cult. So
And
it's pretty
that's
interesting.
that becomes an interesting question. Does the hero of the story have to be inherently good, inherently noble, or do they just have to not give up?
I honestly, it's weird, right? Because in this is kind of a weird seg. In a lot of like my Dungeons and Dragons groups, we've kind of done away with alignment
Hmm.
because in some ways it just doesn't feel true, right? It does, like, nobody is always lawful good. Nobody is always chaotic evil. Um, Everybody is shades of something in between, at different times in their lives, and I think that the way that we're examining heroes now, um, I think it's great because it becomes more applicable to real life. Um, and like you said, I don't think that a hero necessarily needs to be always good, because they aren't. In fact, like some of the more interesting stories that you read, sometimes they're not good. Sometimes they're bad most of the time. Sometimes they're always messing up. Like I'll God, this is a deep cut, but in the series Dragonlance, right? It's a series of Dungeons and Dragons books. There's a character, Raceland, who is for he has all the power in the world. Eventually, he has this lust for power, and you can see that it's turning him evil. But at the very last second, when things could when he knows, he sees the future, and he knows the ultimate um, the ultimate like ending of like what his actions are going to be. He stops himself, and that's heroic, you know. To sacrifice yourself despite you working on all these things, despite having this goal, this dream. When you realize that it's something that's going to be bad for everybody around you, even the people that you love, and you can stop that, and you can stop what you're doing. That's definitely heroic.
I want to ask you because you're clearly a guy who values what the story means and how the story can apply to many different levels. Was there a moment either in the story or in your lives making the story where you said, this is going to be something special?
Um, I don't know. I think I've been writing just a lot of things for a last 10, 15 years. Um, and it's always hard for me to see um what I'm writing or what I'm working on, what place it's going to have in pop culture or like in society as a whole. I think that so it is all that's also been my experience with this. I don't know where it's going to stand. I don't know if it's going to be special. I will tell you what got me excited was um, when we saw the first piece of key art,
Okay.
like one of the splash pages. I was like, oh, this is going to be pretty cool.
And that was
So
kind of what I was going for there. It was a
yeah,
moment where it was like, oh, this is a project that I'm glad we invested in here. And uh,
absolutely.
yeah, because yeah, so you've had the resume. You're a blogger, and when you say that you don't know where something's going to land or where the significance is going to be, I get that because
Right.
you have a broad range of interests that you write on, and that's cool.
Right.
That's a good thing
Yeah.
because it shows that your mind is flexible.
Right. Try to be right. It's just like it's
Well,
all about.
yeah.
This is Bruce Lee. Be like water. Right.
Well, sure, sure. And I mean, you've done some work there, but you're also an actor,
Yeah.
and that makes a big difference because you're on both sides of the page, so to speak.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. I think it. I think it's helpful. I think that's definitely something that uh when I'm given the script, it's I'm not gonna say it's easy, but like I have a process um that it allows me to get to what I need to get to like quicker, you know. Like I see everything from like, oh, what did they mean here? What what is the intention? Like it's a lot clearer for me, like right off the bat, like what the intentions of everything are on the page.
Now that's interesting because when I write, I mean, I have
Yeah.
a process too, and my
Mhm.
process is not what I would call efficient in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Right.
I mean, I will free write and then I will note and then I will go back and sometimes digitize my analog notes and
Right.
but it works.
Yeah.
And if you're saying
Absolutely.
you have a process that makes things faster,
Hmm.
that's cool to me, and I'd like to know what kind of process that is.
Well, if as an actor, it makes things easier for me, quicker to break down things. Um, as an actor, having like some background in writing, writing is always going to be hard. Writing is always a process for me. It doesn't come as naturally or as easily as the acting does. Um, but it, being able to think, come from a place where I think like a writer, makes my acting easier. And
Mhm.
I always that always reminds me of I was in this guitar forum, right? And people were talking about tabbing out a song, and um, it was like, oh, these chords are easy. It's easy for me to tab this out. It's such a simple song. While the songwriters are like, yeah, it took you 5 minutes to tab out my song. It took me weeks to write it. You know, and it's the same way with acting and writing for me. It'll take me, weeks and weeks to write, but it'll take me, 4 or 5 minutes to kind of break down um, the script. And I don't know what, I guess the process it really is. Um, it's sensing, it's like seeing patterns, and it's seeing I don't want to say tropes, but things that you see recur a lot. So
Mhm.
and just the way people, writers, like convey what they want in a script. Um, you see those markers a lot, and I'm like, oh, I know what they want. This is what, and I'll give them this. This is their intention. So, yeah,
And in terms of giving people what they want, you have worked in the past with some rather legendary properties. You've had Lara Croft, you've had Star Wars, you've had Batman under your belt at some point in time.
right,
And we talked about how sometimes the hero isn't necessarily good and noble. The hero is just getting by. The hero is a mix. The hero is
right,
real. And those are all great examples of that.
right. Absolutely,
So I'm
absolutely.
thinking that you naturally trend toward these stories of some complexity,
Mm,
but stories that maybe embrace the world as it is right now or the world as we see it.
right. Yeah, I mean that's fair. I never even thought about it like that. Um, the 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 hard truth is that, like, I sometimes, like, for the most part, I don't choose these things. There are things that, like, I am chosen for, um, and perhaps that's something that's an interesting thought. Maybe it is just the way I see things and the way I process things, manifesting itself in my acting work, and that's what makes it work in that way.
That's kind of what I was getting at is that maybe I realize that you don't actively choose some of these parts, but when you're the right one for it, there's obviously a reason for that. Obviously, you're
Right.
bringing something to it in your perspective here.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's an interesting thought. I never thought about.
That, not that you have to be, like Batman to work in Batman, but the fact is you understand it.
Right, right, absolutely.
And so when we come back to Lineage, is there something about that story that we think kind of reflects your worldview, your way of looking at things?
Yeah, I think that with Lineage, it's very much. Yeah, I was trying to tiptoe around things because I don't want to spoil
I don't
anything.
want
But
you to
like,
spoil anything. I'm not in that,
yeah,
but
but a lot of this is going to be. I was talking to Justin. He's on the other writer, and a lot of it is. there's going to be redemption despite shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
there's going to be a lot of that, and that's going to be and we didn't even think about this until it came up. Really, there's a lot of generational trauma that does show up in the book. In the first issue and in the second issue, which is in progress right now, yeah, it's absolutely coming out. So yeah.
That is actually, I think, a heroic thing when you address that.
Yeah.
I mean, because to actually say to yourself that I recognize that there are patterns in my life that go back years and sometimes centuries before me that I need to stop for the benefit of somebody else.
Right. Right.
Somebody who either I'll never know them as an adult or I might know them for just a little brief time, but the people that come after me need the benefit of me stopping this right here. And that's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But for those who come after, you know.
Yeah.
So
Because you're looking at things that probably seem right to you inside, but in your head you're like, no, this isn't right, and somebody else needs the benefit of me saying this has to be. We have to make life better.
yeah, yeah. So
I mean, and
that. No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say I want to say I haven't read the book, so I don't necessarily know that this applies, but I think that we're talking about the right themes here.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty close. There's like not a lot of that stuff is going to. You know, the problem does show up in the first book, or the first issue, I should say, but we will definitely explore it more as as we get through the third and fourth issue. The interesting thing is that it's kind of, despite the fact that we do have 4 issues and we're going for 24 pages each, it's still it's a tight fit to fit in all that
Mhm.
story. So
Oh yeah, oh
we're
yeah,
figuring that out now. So
yeah, and there's always this little bit that you didn't quite storyboard right, and you have to shuffle around it. Or sometimes the artist has this idea of let's do this instead. It's like, oh, that's great, but it's going to screw this up too. And yeah,
oh yeah.
oh yeah. So okay, by the time this episode hits the feed, I'm going to encourage people to run to the Kickstarter, but you might be in the last few days of it. We're talking
Absolutely.
about the very beginning of April here.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want this book, where can they get it with that in mind? You said you're going to hit some conventions up.
Yep. So we are going to hit up WonderCon. We'll be there for sure. That's going to be at the very end of March. But everything else, we don't have necessarily. We don't have distribution set up yet. But everything can be picked up at kidheroes.com. Yes, let me double check that. But I want to say kidheroes.com. Or if you go to Kid Heroes on IG, all the links will be there.
Fantastic. Well, where can people follow your adventures and your further writing on the internet?
I am everywhere on socials at Early Be Good. That's EARLYBGOODE. So everywhere you can sign up for an account, that's my handle, basically.
Earl, I want to thank you so much for being here. I would love to have you back anytime. And if I can get out to WonderCon next year, maybe we can meet up.
Yeah, that would be great. I love that. I love meeting people online and then like meeting them in person. So it's great. Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to do it.
I would like to thank Earl for being my guest today, and I would like to thank you for listening. You've probably noticed when I sign off at the end of these little chats that I like to ask the audience that if you're working on something, a new creative comic, novel, movie, whatever the case may be, I would like to hear about it. Well, I'm going to flip that around this time. I do want to hear about anything you might be working on. Don't get me wrong. But I would more like to hear if you have visited a convention and you bumped into a really cool project. If you want to help that person out, reach out on their behalf. Write to me at bossigpodcast@yahoo.com or look me up on social media. It's at Aaron Bossig on Blue Sky or Instagram. Tell me about the coolest thing you found at the conventions, and maybe you might be able to help out that person who's trying to get their work out there. You can subscribe to this show on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, any podcasting platform you might think of. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.